This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This ain't no bluff. This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This ain't no bluff. Can you please tell me why? It's time to take action now. How many more mothers would have to cry after watching their son die to all the senseless gun violence? When you gonna sit down and realize that it soon become a crime to live free in your own island? Sometimes I feel stuck and confined all this pressure I got inside. How to lose it, try to fight it. But yet I still get up and try. And I ask myself why, because nothing gets done. Stay silent. What if them guns and bullets really aimed at you? Then you probably feel the pain. This is what the people of this country really going through. I'm home, but I feel like an outcast. How long is supposed to last? Police and politicians tell me what to do. Man, sometimes I feel like going crazy. Mothers and fathers still can't afford to feed the babies. Some days I just can't move on. I'm here trying to be strong. We need answers, please, madam, for me of late. Now tell us why you left us all to feel this way. Thought our votes meant for us to have a better way. So many hungry bellies, many angry faces, protesting for something that we deserve anyway. Please, I'm begging, I know you all can do better. Surrounded by ocean, but now my tears run wetter. Sick and tired of seeing my people asking for each other while them others from abroad come here and live way better. Why? Virus got us all locked up. Been 6 months since I seen a check. What the? My stomach hurt me, and I'm real furious. Someone please tell me when I'ma get my stimulus. Foreign workers got them all first. That's the people of the soil of protest, man, that hurts. Trust me when I say it's really sad. Why when I tell the truth, you get mad. I'm in my own country living in fear. Lock me up by the white man up here. I really hope you hear me loud and clear. Someone please go and play this for the premiere. I'm out.
Happy Saturday, Turks and Caicos. Welcome to another episode of Uncut, and I would just like to thank Jim Kelly for a number of things for my Uncut anthem song. Hats off to you. You're very talented, you and Black Boy. And also for the song Why, because listening to the song just now, which I've heard time and time again, it gave me goosebumps just because you could hear the pain and it really speaks to what is happening in our country. And it speaks to our topic today, which is Save Our Men. And that topic was derived from the initiative which Mr. Patterson Williams and Mr. Nixon Dickenson both spearheaded, and it's called Save Our Boys. And today we have both of them here with us, so I'd just like to welcome you both onto Uncut.
Good afternoon, Toxicators. And before I begin to speak, I just want to congratulate you on this program. I must say, the amount of young people's lives that you are impacting and that you are reaching throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands, bringing awareness to most of our, or all of our issues and facts here in Turks and Caicos Islands, especially issues that young people are facing. You know, I could remember, I don't know if this was your very first program, but this is when I joined in. You spoke on the topic emancipation and being able to TIs to free up yourself, free up your mind mentally, physically, and all. And I must say, I said, okay, she's gonna blow up. This is gonna be big, and and it's so sad, so done. So once again, congratulations on this program, Uncut, and reaching the lives of our young people and our nation at large.
Thank you so much. And yes, that was the very first Uncut episode. And it just so happened to be that it was launched August 1st, actually.
Okay, oh, all right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, great.
Well, I just want to say thanks for the invite. As far as I'm concerned, it's a great initiative. I love the fact that you're reaching out in this radical way. You know, young people have a voice and they want to be heard. And so I'm just thankful for the fact that you've offered them a platform that meets their needs. Nick and I are a bit older, and so our style may be a little different, but, it's a decent vibe, and, we all for it because it's promoting positivity, and that's what we're all about. You see, that's the ultimate thing that we want to get across. It's not my way, it's not your way. It's for us to collectively come together and find solutions to these problems. And we're open to whatever venue, we're open to whatever possibilities, because like we said, we're all about seeing young people, not just young men, but young people on a whole, be promoted, move forward, and do positive things. So yeah. I thank you for the invite as well.
Thank you so much. And what you said just now just triggered a thought, because you said you guys are all about seeing young people better themselves. And you specifically said, well, not just young men. But I am grateful that you both have paid special attention to our young men, because a lot of times there are so many programs and initiatives that focus on youth. But I feel as if our young men need that special attention.
Yes.
They need the special love. They need to know that somebody cares for them. And so the community is grateful for the work that you both are doing. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Can you just let us know exactly what is Save Our Boys? What does it consist of?
All right, the Saving Our Boys is a program implemented by the Department of Youth Affairs. It came about in 2015. We saw a number of crimes that being committed here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. With a lot of, like you mentioned, a young man that was involved, and so we started a whole campaign during the Youth Week celebrations in 2015 under the leadership of Honorable Akira Mizik. And since then, we realized that we did the forums, we did the workshops, we did the concerts, we get to come together, we visit the schools, and we realized that something is missing. We need something substantial, we need something more that we can reach out to these young men, you know, because it was a cry out. They were crying out, and we felt as if what we were doing worked or should work or be best. But you know, we come to find out that it was not enough, and so hence the idea of saving our boys, you know, and a program where our young men can have a platform to speak out, to communicate with us in terms of allowing us to know and hear what is happening, what is the issues. Not only that, how can we come together and make this better in terms of and the decrease with the gun violence, you know? And so we wanted them to have a voice, basically, you know, because events was good, but we needed a program, a solid program that these guys can come on, and we can follow the progress of our young man. And here is Saving Our Boys. And since then, it's been effective, I must say. And before I allow Mr. Williams to speak, persons, when it first implemented, persons say it might be difficult because this is hard, trying to, you know, prevent gun violence within the Tuxtla Islands. It was not that, because we had a platform already. We have a program personally, not without that's not part of the government, the Boys Club of Grand Turk. And so it was sort of, we just built on that. And instead of just focusing on gun prevention here in Grand Turk, we launched out through Saving Our Boys through the whole Tuxtla Islands through the Department of Youth Affairs.
I think the whole vision just came from the fact that we were already intricately involved with, you know, reaching out to young men. Myself and Nick, with a couple of our friends, we've been doing some camps with young men for some time. And so we had already built a decent rapport with a lot of the young guys. And so we just thought that although we already had this presence, that because of the current situation that was occurring, it made practical sense for us to use the platform that we already had and just to expand it in terms of addressing the current issues that we're facing. Because in totality, I think our young men are just looking for encouragement. They're looking for encouragement, they're looking for motivation, they're looking for someone just to advocate for them. You see, ultimately we need to build them up and make them to understand that, you know, you have gifts, you have abilities, you have talents. Statistics within our country show that our young men, for whatever the reasons are lagging young women in terms of performance. And so we thought it was a self-esteem thing. And so we say, you know what, we got to start doing some work in terms of helping these young men to build themselves, for them to realize what their potential is so that they can focus on these positive things, you know? And so we just wanted to use our platform, just use our presence, use our history in terms of dealing with most of the young men and the rapport that we've developed to kind of, you know, just be a neutralizing factor in terms of what we see going on. Because to be honest with you, we have a pretty good presence with all of these young men that are involved in some instances. We were kind of well known in Grand Turk, but we extended our presence into Provo, and we're getting better known there, and we're finding good reception. And so it's a positive thing. And so we're just encouraging young men to realize that we need every one of them. We need every one of them. We need them to be engaged. We need them to do positive things, because at the end of the day, it's sad because, and what I keep telling Nick is that at the end of the day, I don't have a son, he doesn't have one. And it seems ironic that two men with no sons are so intricately involved with this thing. But at the end of the day, he's one of my best friends. It's something that he was passionate about. And I just wholeheartedly threw myself into giving him the support, because I know when you take on these types of initiatives, you need people to be in your corner. And so that's kind of why I am, you know, encouraged to be a part of this, because I see positive things coming from it. And I just take hats off to him for spearheading this and just incorporating me to be a help.
Yes, definitely. So how can the community get in your corner? How can we support you guys? And when I say the community, I'm speaking about individuals as well as businesses.
We through the Department of Youth Affairs, you know, you can contact any one of the officers. We have officers on each island, okay? And we have through that officers, we are asking for, the cry out right now, honestly, is for male mentors. I listened to one of our mentors in the program, Dr. Bernard Young. He said that we are over mother and under fathering. So, so it's a cry out for our male mentors, because don't whatever you're doing, I mean, continue. If you're making your impact in either way that you're not on a platform where persons can see or hear you, that's fine. But if you're not involved, we are asking that, contact the Department of Youth Affairs, and of course that you could be a part of this program, Saving Our Boys, because we all need it's a multi-sectoral approach. We need the community involved. We need to have conversations. We tried so many other initiatives, so now we're asking the community, listen here, if you have ideas, you have some sort of strategy that can work, come on board, because we just need to change some laws. We need to put some policies in place. We need to do some things definitely, and it's an urgent need, because we are losing our young man. And I'm tired of it. It hurts me every day to hear what is happening in what's going on in the communities. The persons are asking. So by all means, contact myself, Mr. Patterson Williams, Department of Youth Affairs. So you can give a hand.
Well, from our perspective, we look at this from multiple tiers. We have the component, because one of the things we do on a regular basis is we try to assess what is the background of these kids, where they're coming from. Do they have a father in the home? Are they coming from a single parent household? And so in most instances, when you assess it, you realize that one of the critical factors in everything is the fact that there's not a male factor that is speaking into these lives of these young men, giving them direction, giving them guidance, giving them a sense of identity. I think one of the main things that Nick has been trying to do through Mr. Young is to make these young men to understand their identity, to make them to understand that even though you might be in a situation that's a challenging situation, that situation really doesn't define you. All of us have challenges. And I think what we're trying to do at this stage is we're trying to build up the young men. We're trying to help them to develop better coping skills, better skills in terms of conflict resolution and all of these things. And that's what we've been trying to do. But ultimately, I see there are many things that need to be done in terms of encouraging this process, because what we find in our communities now is that a young man feel if he ain't got one cold beer in his hand, he ain't no man, or he ain't this. And so we are calling on the authorities and the government and everybody to understand that it's going to take all of us being involved. It's too easy for our young people to get exposed to alcohol and all of these things in the country. While I understand that it's choice, I think it should be a bit more stringent in terms of availability and what have you, especially to school age kids, because we have the impression that this thing only affects grown men. But I was a grown man body from the time I was 14, 15 years old. And this is the same situation with many of these young fellas. You look at them today, they in the club and they just in fuss and third form. And so what we're basically saying is that we've got to do a better job of making sure that these children be children. Allow them to be children, allow them to develop, allow them to discover what potential and talents they have. Because I think what happens to our young men sometimes is they get caught in the fact that, well, I'm not the best academic person. And so because you're not the best academic, you tend to lose focus because you don't know what giftings and abilities you have. You were speaking about some young men earlier. I would endeavor to say, I don't know what their social situation is, but it seems as if they've shown the various talents and abilities that they have. And so that's the kind of thing that we're wanting to do. We're wanting to kind of bridge their generation and our generation, and that's the component with the mentorship. We want men that are relatively successful, men that are structured, men that are disciplined, to be able to sit down and talk to some of these young men and make them to understand, boss, you're going a little far. Slow down, take your time. You know, some of these things don't happen overnight. My experience to them is always, Nick and I didn't go to college until we were big grown married men. You know what I mean? I'm 27, 28 years old in some instances. But what we want them to understand is that as long as you have life, you have hope. And so you got to keep progressing on this path and on this growth of journey of growth, because sometimes, you know, you start at the gate late, but sometimes God is good and he allows you time to grow and to develop. And so we just want them to understand, you know, you got to stay engaged, stay committed, do what you need to do in the interim, but continue to progress towards those goals and those visions that you have for yourself.
Some of our young men, you know, as Patterson was saying, we took it to the streets throughout the TCI. This ain't nothing that we sat behind a computer or make some calls, man. We went into the corners that some places, Patterson and I, fairly big guys. So when we approach these places, these guys were like, try to test us anything. They listen. And to hear the cry out, the cries that these guys are talking about, because we ask, if you have, rather you have a record or not, what is the reason for you being involved with these? Why are you, you putting yourself in this position? Because, we don't want to lose another one. And, they were like, man, listen here, I'm involved with this because it's a matter of protection. Nick, I'm involved in this. It's a matter of finances being provided. It's a matter of these guys looking out for me. I'm getting what I need. They're protecting me. I want to be involved in something. I want to be a part of something. And sometimes the end result is not that great. And so in this program, we're asking these guys to listen here. We're going to create revenues. We're going to create outlets, for you to express yourself, to be a part. One of the things that we did in the Department of Youth Affairs is we did a listening tour. And coming out of the listening tour, one of the results by hanging out on the blocks of game was creating and establishing a trade school here within the TCI. So that was one of the cries of these young men, that listen here, I'm in a gang or I'm a part of a gang because it's just that I feel that my life is being protected. Like Patterson say, yes, that might be the case. And it's easy, it's sad than done. But listen here, brother, this don't have to be the end of your story. There is hope. There's hope for you, young man. There is hope here in the TCI. There are other young men that cares and concern about your well-being. And so, this is a means of us doing our part through this program and just on our personal time, because we just have that concern and passion for our young man.
Yes, definitely. And also, I feel both persons who got out of the game and lived that life before, and now they're successful and they're thriving. The country needs you to speak up and come forward and speak to our young men and let them know, hey, this was my experience, and I found that coming out saved my life. Mm-hmm. So I feel as if a lot of persons who were previously incarcerated, also your testimony, when God gives you a testimony, that testimony is not for you. Because a lot of times as humans, we say, my test is for a testimony, but it does no good if nobody knows your testimony. Not only you have to know your testimony, God gives you a testimony so that you can impact the lives of other people, so that other persons don't have to walk on the same path that you did, because you're able to tell them about your mistakes and you're able to correct them when they're wrong.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of ironic that you're speaking about incarceration, because in my previous work history, I used to be a correctional officer. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, I've engaged many a young man. And to be honest with you, you'll be amazed to understand that in some instances, a lot of these fellas who you see acting macho and nonchalant and don't care, man, those guys are the ones that when you really get to talking to them and you get deep, they're the first ones to break down and start crying and what have you, because you understand that they've been through some difficulty. You understand that they've been through, and so part of it is we got to understand how to empathize with these young men. I think the general sentiment sometimes is to tell you, man, toughen up, man. Come on, don't be a little wimp and what have you. And sometimes you need to understand these fellas weren't necessarily given the best of opportunities. They made some bad choices, but in it all, we have to be more forgiving. We have to put together, like Nick said, more formal programs in terms of helping them to do the necessary work with themselves in terms of introspection, help them to develop the type of skills that are marketable. And in most instances, what I try to encourage them is to realize that the best route for them is going to be a route with regards to entrepreneurship, because it's kind of difficult. I understand it's kind of difficult for you to sell yourself once you would have been in a situation where you've transgressed the law to most people. For whatever the reasons are, we're not as trusting as we should be. Being a Christian community and what have you, we should be more, from the reconciliation component of it, more forgiving towards individuals in terms of past discussions. But for whatever the reasons are, what we are trying to encourage young men to realize is that you got to develop a skill. You got to develop a skill. And I'm going to say it over again. You got to develop a skill. because that is going to be the best opportunity for you in terms of you being able to move forward and to progress in society. You got to find a way to put down those things that even though you're making more money and there's a good hustle, you got to find something to do that's legal and right in order for you to progress forward. You gotta be willing to come out of the game, because if you continue, you're only going to find yourself more entrenched, more in debt, going higher, going deeper into those kind of things. And so what we're saying ultimately is, once bitten, you got to be twice shy, and you got to move in a better direction. You got to move in a positive direction. And so we're just trying to encourage them and to let them know we ain't giving up on them. We're here just to reassure them and provide them what kind of a support. That means sometimes you got to put your hand in your pocket, and they're gonna hurt you. Sometimes some fellas saying, hey, I need one little pair of shoe, I need one little this and that. And we as a community gotta understand that we gotta be our brother's keeper. And that's the kind of vibe that we're trying to push. Because I can tell you, the ironic thing is when me and Nick and those take those kids in these camps that we do, I'm the cook. And so when I cooking up this food and giving these kids, you sit down and you see one kid bust off 4 or 5 plates of food. You sit down and you say, but wait, hold on. Man, this kid look like he getting proper nutrition. Because when a little skinny kid like this could sit down and bust off 5 plates of food, you now realizing that for that little man, that's the most food he's seen in forever. And so just to have the luxury to sit down and eat as much as you want and to partake as much as you want, it's a luxury to a lot of these kids. And so what we're trying to say is that, man, it's kind of difficult for you to talk to a man when he's hungry and he wants something to eat and there's no provision and no way to go. And so what we're asking for, man, let's get some more of these programs in our schools. Let's get some more of these programs in our society, that if a man wants a hot plate of food, there's somewhere in the community that he know that he can go, rather than doing those bad things that he used to do in the hustle game, trying to basically supply these basic things that they need. And I think we as a society got to understand that we have a role to play in giving back to these young people in this regard.
Yes, definitely. And listening to you say that, it actually put my mind back to someone who's incarcerated told me that 2 young boys went to jail, and he used to take care of them when he wasn't in prison. And when they walked through the gates and they saw him, they just cried. And he asked them, like, why are you here? Why are you crying? And they told him, we only went on that robbery because when you came to prison, we had nobody to feed us and we were hungry. So we went on that lick, and it was just to eat. And so many stories like that exist. And it's sad. It's sad that we live in such a small community. We love to say how small Turks and Caicos is, to know that there are young people here hungry. And once you get to a certain point of hungry, they get desperate. And so we have to come together as a community and help our young men and save our young men. And that was the reason why I named the topic Save Our Young Men, because these boys grow into men. And they're the men that are in our community. They become our husbands. They become fathers. They become, they're our brothers. So we don't want to see anything bad happen to them, because at the end of the day, we know that once you walk down that negative road, only 2 things can happen to you: death or imprisonment. That's it. And so we have to save our young men, because at the end of the day, someday you and Mr. Dickenson will be gone, and someone will have to fill your roles, and we need them. So it's important for us to jump on board. So with that being said, it's our role also as girlfriends or as wives, because you know that these people coming home and they don't have a job. So it's your role to correct these men as the women in their lives, whether it be your son, whether it be your husband, whether it be your boyfriend. As long as you have a male in your life and you love that person, you should love that person enough to correct their wrongs.
One of the intricate things listening to you talk is, one of the critical things we need to do to help our young men is to make them to understand they have to be responsible. When you're taking on family, when you're taking on girlfriend, when you're taking on obligations, you got to be responsible. You've got to understand. And I think that's where we fall down. That's where the girlfriends sometimes fall down. That's where the mommy sometimes fall down, because they take on the shoulder all of the responsibility and just let the guy off the hook and just tell the guy, hey man, it's okay. I'm not saying that you got to be harsh, but you got to let him be a man. You got to let him understand, boss, it's your role to figure out how you're going to deal with this vibe. You understand? At the end of the day, yes, I understand you made a bad decision or whatever it is, but you got to figure this out. You got to look deep in yourself and sit down and say, you know what, man, as a man, I got to deal with this. This is my responsibility. And that's part of it. We can't let him off the hook. I mean, I sit down and I look at some of these young kids. And when you do that, we got to understand that our presence is necessary. Listen, I didn't say our money all the time. I say our presence is necessary. Because when you forsake that son or that daughter, they grow up, they don't know their identity. They don't know who they are. They're struggling with their own self-image and all of these kind of things. And so that's why we're trying to reassure these young men not to repeat the kind of situations that they've probably endured and go out there and do the same things that their dad did and not be in place for those significant people that are in their lives and be able to hold down the kind of responsibility and what have you. So for me and Mr. Nick, we've been saying this thing for ages that we were getting old and we're going to have to pack it up soon. But you know what does it to us? Sister, every time we go and talk to a group of young men, the first thing they ask you is when you coming back. And that does do something to me because they're asking you when you coming back. And in most instances, these are people that we've met for the first time. And because of the experience and because of the type of engagement that they've had, first thing they ask you, man, when you're coming back? And I say, you know what, Nick, as much as I may be wanting to stop doing this, man, we can't stop.
Well, Andra, I'm just happy for this sort of platform that you're a part of, because you're doing, even though, for example, this is a saving our boy, saving our young man. You're creating a platform and a voice for these young people, especially a young man.
When I finish, I come.
And this is what we need in TCI, because Patterson said it. Some cases, our young men have to man up and take on some of the responsibility. Because listen, a lot of us made mistakes. A lot of us made some bad decisions. Some of us, the problem is that we just didn't get caught. We just didn't get caught up in it. We didn't feel off like the others. You might not. So that doesn't mean that is the end of your story. Because if you want it bad enough, you have enough examples out there that you can follow. There's a second chance program now here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So, find out what is going on that you could be a part of the redemption process. Because you mentioned it earlier that if another young man would hear your story, and if you're listening in, you'd be surprised, the impact that you can change that young man's life. I might be 5 years trying to reach this young man, giving him everything I've got, my story, whatever. You now, in 2 minutes, you change his thinking. His thought process. Man, I was thinking about making a hit tonight, but man, listen here. When I listen to what homeboy had to say, I'm changing. So this is what we're trying to get at. That we won't be here forever. The hard time is up, and so these are the young men. If you're listening in, you have to set an example for the generation to come, because they're watching you, they're listening to you, they're watching your every movement. People today is not listening to your words, they're watching your lifestyle, they're watching your movement, they're watching what you do more than what you have to say, because it's all about action. It's all about setting an example. It's all about, Patterson say, you're putting yourself in a position where you can't just give a word, but at the end of the day, you got to put your hand in your pocket. And so this is what we're here for. There is a second chance. There is a place that listen here, that I've messed up, but this don't have to be the end of my story.
Yes, and I'd also like to encourage businesses to get involved in the Second Chance program, because you could be saving a young man's life. You could be stopping the next robbery by providing him with employment. So all business owners do try to get in contact and get on board with that initiative, because really and truly it is saving our community. And at the end of the day, I tip my hats off to all the young men who are a part of that program, because it takes courage to stand up and do the right thing. But this issue of saving our men is a multifaceted issue. it will take a lot to get done. It'll take a lot of groundwork, especially. But I also think that the problem is also a spiritual problem, because there is a spiritual warfare going on amongst our young men. And I don't think as a community we appreciate it as much and take it for the face value of what it really is. And we need to stand in, and I'm getting goosebumps while I'm saying this, we need to stand in unity with our young men in the spiritual sense and intercede on their behalf as a community. And many times I've seen a few churches or pastors from churches doing fasting and all of these different things. But as young people, it is important for us to become a part of that, to join in on the fasting, to join in on the praying. And that's young men and women alike. We need to join hands with those, because a lot of times when I see those initiatives take off, it's actually spearheaded by older persons. And it's important for our youth to get involved. And by the way, this is just a plug-in. So Nadia and I did have a sit-down talk about the spiritual aspect of what is going on in our country. So for everyone who is watching Uncut, I'll encourage you to head on over to Sanadia Forbes page and look at it. Or I also shared it on the Uncut page, so it's also accessible on Uncut. But the conversation was very interesting, and talking to her really triggered so many different thoughts about it, because it was truly deeper than we think. And I hope that as a country, we're able to come together and unite, even if it's just to save our male loved one.
You know, the intricate thing about what you're saying is that it brought back some memories. Because Nick and I have been friends for relatively a long time. From when I was 19 years old. I remember he had made a personal declaration and accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior, and him being my boy, you know, I just used to hang out with him and what have you. I remember when he went to Barbados to go to school, and I was here chilling and what have you, and I remember him coming back and inviting me to a church service. And to be honest with you, that experience, I think, has characterized me becoming the person that I am today, because I can tell you, I wasn't no easy dude growing up. I wasn't no easy fella. So this fella you hear speaking now eloquently and talking all these nice words, that wasn't me. So I could give these fellas the raw version of me. The raw Patterson, every 2 words was F your ma, F your grandma, F your this, F your dad, F your the other. And so I don't want them to think that there's 2 nice gentlemen here, you know, who don't know the ropes. You see, because I was a road boy, you see. So I just thankful for the fact that, you know, through him, God was able to capture me in a time in my life before I decided to do some of the ignorance, like he said, that I had in my mind to do. And so that's what it's all about for us. It's about us standing in the gap in terms of our presence, because there's a couple of young men, I believe that my role is to kind of mentor them, because I see them being indisciplined like I was at that particular time. And part of our responsibility is for them to find that inner man on the inside of them that is going to be responsible and that is going to be capable of leading the nation and family and all these things. Because sometimes, because of our own personal circumstances and because of our own challenges, we tend to not see ourselves progressing in the ways in life that we've seen other people. And sometimes we look at other people and we compare ourselves to other people, and we sit down and say, boy, if I was born in that family, oh boy, if I had what this person had, boy, if I had that kind of money and this and that. And what you got to realize and tell these kids sometimes is, boss, if you get what that fella had, you would have been just like he is. Because when you sit down and look how he is now, his mommy and his daddy and those enable him so much that he ain't got no drive. But the fact that you grew up how you grew up and you were positioned how you positioned is what brought up that motivation and that zeal for life that you have. So when you sit down and look at me and Nick, we ain't come from no privileged background. So that's what we want to tell these kids, you know? We're young men that at the time when we were young, we didn't know where we were going. But as a result, like you said, of Christ coming into our lives and giving us a hope and giving us a purpose, we were able to chart a different course. Because I can tell you, Nick is a fairly charming looking fellow. And, you know, he had the capability of being good and mischievous, but for whatever reason, we got into Christ, got married at a relatively young age, he and I can tell you, it kind of seems as if our paths has always been linked. I got married at age 23 in July. Nick basically got married in August. And so for whatever the reasons are, our paths have been interconnected through this journey in life. I don't know why God ordained it so, but I'm here laughing at this now to see that, you know, at this juncture in our life, I'm now 46, and I'm still on the same journey of trying to figure out who I am. And I have one of my best friends that's here. And so this is the kind of thing that we want young men to understand. You're going to develop friendships that are going to last for a lifetime. And in these experiences, you got to know how to have your boys back, and your boy got to know how to have your back. Not in gangstering, but in positivity and going in the positive direction and encouraging one another to promote one another. And let me tell you something. The unique thing about this, I know I talk a lot. The unique thing about it is both Nick and I went off to school, came back, did all kinds of things, and we started back at the same point as if we never went anywhere. And that's the kind of relationships you need in your life. People who you can depend on, people that you can trust on, and people that you can look up to and say, you know what, I know I got somebody in my corner. 9 times out of 10 may not be a family member, but have some friend, somebody in your life that can speak into your life, give you direction, encourage you, point you in the right direction when you're doing wrong, tell you by your skin, and help you to move forward.
Just add, because Patterson just said it all. You know, my boy don't play with words. So you know, don't play. Very, very intelligent. And I was like, he said it right. You know, I find someone in him that we can feed off each other. Okay, and we motivate and help each other, no matter what, thick and thin. The 3 of us, even my brother Aussie and Broccoli with us. The thing is that you always need somebody. You know, you can't do this alone. You know, John Donne meditation said, no man is an island. So, you know, you always need somebody, support. But at the same time, you know, if you have your boy and you say, man, it's my ride or die, it's for life, at least find someone that can push you, motivate you, you know, that you end up on the same path together. When I messed up, if I'm not on a right track, Pastor coming over and he telling me about it. And I'm in the same path. I said, Pete, what is that about? Man, kill that. You know, it's because you have to help each other. When we see some of these young fellas, man, listen here, and most of them would do anything for their boys. And you hear them say, man, Nick, I ain't snitching on my boy. And do you? But the point is that you need someone to build on. Whenever we do our programs, we put God first. We center in it all. Because, you know, the word declares that, you know, I call you young man because you are strong. And that, you know, physically, mentally, you're strong and you're able to bear this. Because I always watch and I listen to some of the young men that is up to now. When I said, I'm sorry, and incarcerated in prison, the mental state that they're in is like, and some that endure this, and I was like, wow, brother, you're not going through this just because. Bro, you put up through this because you need now to share your story. Because to bear this, to go over there at the age of 60, 70, that's not easy. That's half your life taken from you, brother. But to the end of the day, you survive it. You survive it because God is with you. And his word declares, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. So everything that we do, we allow the persons to know that we could never do this in our own strength. You can never do it on your own strength. And for some of these young men, that they're alive today was only because of God's grace. Trust me.
Yes, and I hope that this message definitely does get out to our young men. Like I say, this issue is multifaceted, so this conversation could literally go on all night. Apart from the spiritual aspect, you also have the culture having a huge influence on what is happening in our country. And that is one of the reasons why the issue of controlled media was so widely debated in the Caribbean. So at first, I think the first time I actually heard of that topic, restricted media, I probably was in grade 6. And at first I couldn't understand why you would want to restrict media. And as I got older, then I realized how much influence it has on the minds of your people and how much influence it has on your country. And so we like to use the term cancel the culture. But for me, we can't cancel it, but we do have to change it. We have to change the things that are taboo in our society. The no snitching. It's easy for you to say no snitching, but it's hard for you to tell your boy that he doing wrong. And it just doesn't really make sense. And a lot of times, once you tell him better, and if he stops, it will save you from saying free so and so. It saves you from that, or RIP so and so. And so I really hope that our young boys get this message, that our young men begin to take responsibility and step up to the plate and be men, be real men. Because the bad boy lifestyle is not being a real man. It doesn't make you a man. And so I hope that our youth and our young men take their own lives seriously, and they are able to save themselves from what lies ahead if they continue on the path that they're on. But I just want to thank you both for coming on to Uncut, and the conversation was very interesting. And of course, I'm hoping to have you guys back again in the near future.
Not a problem.
Thank you so much.
Yes, as I mentioned before, this conversation is multifaceted. And with that being said, next week we are going to continue the conversation with Mr. Serrano Hunt. And if a lot of you are familiar with Ra, you would know that that would be a very interesting conversation, because he will be able to look at it from a young man's perspective. So see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to Uncut.
All righty. Take it easy.
This is Uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back, cause this is Uncut. This is Uncut. This is Uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is Uncut. This is Uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff.